Hello, in this video, we're going to be talking about the Apple company. It was hard for the Apple company to compete with the cheaper competitors. However, in 1977, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak firstly launched the Apple II computer, and they valued it as the most personal computer. One of the first microcomputers with its personal keyboard installed. Apple yearly sales grew from 774,000 to 180 million US dollars and had an average yearly growth rate at 533%. In December 1980s, Apple was listed in Nasdaq stock market and the stock was sold almost immediately. Moreover, on the same year, there was a launch of an Apple III. However, Apple experienced a big failure with that. After the failure with the launch of Apple III, Steve Jobs gathered a team of 100 to work on a secret project. However, as he considered, he only allowed a very small number of outside people to be the part of the team. In 1984, it was a launch of a Macintosh, the legendary Macintosh. The Macintosh was revolutionary and outstanding innovation. Public loved everything. What was around the Macintosh, the campaign, the Steve Jobs, also talking about it in the press. However, there was one big issue with it. The Macintosh failed to do one thing it needed to do: get people to buy it. It was too expensive for struggling creative and too unorthodox for businesses who preferred more conservative devices like the ones from the IBM, the much bigger and well-established rival in the computer market. It was attractive to business people. It wasn't attractive to business people. They basically mispositioned the product. This drove a wedge between John Sculley, ex-PepsiCo CEO, and Steve Jobs. Sculley was brought in Apple as a CEO to bring order and structure to Apple. When John joined the company, it was basically a miracle due to his vision of it to change the world. Steve Jobs was still making the important decisions and was making a big struggle with the notion of Macintosh. The company was losing money on a daily basis, and John Sculley wanted to pull the plug out on the Macintosh. However, Jobs was insisting on it, saying that they must finish the goal. The Apple board sided with the John Sculley, and in 1985, Steve Jobs forced to resign from the company he founded. On one of the interviews he had after the walkout, Jobs said about Sculley, "He basically destroyed everything I spent 10 years working for." When they kicked Steve Jobs, the things started to fall apart. He was the company's soul. Problem after problem started to arise. In fact, Jobs' leaving was detrimental.
The next problem was that Microsoft in the same year launched their operating system Windows. Windows was running on any machine that was based on Intel chip, which consequently allowed for a much wider range in hardware and software and also in prices. Windows quickly overtook Apple and Apple's market share sunk below 10%. In order to then get their market share back up to 11 to 12%, Apple decided to stock up on inventory with as many products as they would need to get their market share back up there. The only issue was that they couldn't sell the inventory because people weren't appreciating the premium price Apple demanded for their products. The next big failure then was the Apple Newton, which was, though very ambitious for the time, just too ambitious and the technology just wasn't there yet. The handwriting wasn't always detected, it was very expensive, and it never really took off. The main issue the firm had at the time was that instead of consolidating, Apple kept on spitting out different products across ranges ranging from high to low to middle and at the same time, and there was just too many products and Apple lost their focus and did too many things, but none of them worked out the way they were supposed to.
So after Steve Jobs, in 1993, John Sculley was removed as CEO of the company, and then the next two CEOs couldn't save Apple either. Apple was losing an enormous amount of money at that time, so they came within 90 days of bankruptcy. Steve Jobs was asked to return after this period of time while they were losing enormous amount of money, and Steve Jobs, he started the company Next, that meantime, and well, they developed high-end computer hardware and softwares. So in 1996, Apple was still on the verge of the bankruptcy, and during that time, the current CEO, who was Gilemeo, he he decided to buy next company that Steve Jobs was running, so to actually use the software as they needed for the operating system. And it was official that after the acquisition that Steve Jobs was back to Apple. And for Steve Jobs, it took 7 months to convince the board to fire the CEO Gilemeo, who decided to buy Steve Jobs' company next that he was working on that period of time. So at the end, Steve Jobs again became the CEO of Apple.
Jobs came back stronger than ever, super motivated to turn Apple around after spending all of his time at Next learning how to become a good CEO. He said, "I came and I want to fix this," showing people that he was really trying to make a big change in the company. He was in it for the long run, charging himself no more than $1 a year for the first 30 months. This is a strategy that several notable CEOs have started using in the recent decades as well, including Larry Page, Mark Zuckerberg, and Elon Musk, which they do it in order to make all of their success correlated to the success of the company, therefore aligning perfectly their interests. One of his first steps as CEO was completely restructuring the company, so he had to fire many people. He also had to rethink their positioning in the market, so he took out several products from the product line, which shaped Apple's philosophy of doing more with less. Today, Apple doesn't have 10 different types of iPhones. They only have one that has all the best functions they could fit in a single device, while making it very simple for the customers to use. After laying out the foundations of his plans by restructuring the company, the true inflection point was during the Think Different campaign, which attracted many creative-minded people to do creative things, creating an internal environment of constant innovation. Apple then started focusing on what the consumers wanted as opposed to what the company envisioned, which was their mistake in the first place. He wanted to make sure that that everyone who had an Apple experience had a great one, making them stay loyal. Design and user experience started becoming the center of Jobs' mission, which is why he gave huge importance to Johnny Ives' role as Chief Design Officer. For example, the change from Macintosh to iMac was a clear example of this, where Jobs focuses on keeping it simple for everyday people. With Apple focusing very hard on what the consumers wanted, even before they knew it, Apple launched several products to engage customers in the Apple ecosystem that we now know very well. These revolutionary products include iTunes, paired with the iPod, making it easy for users to stream music with flexibility without pirating them. The simplicity of the usage made it very easy for them to just buy the songs from Apple, making a huge disruption in the music publishing industry. When the iPhone came out, it was the single electronic device in the world that people could carry everywhere that contained most of the functions that the consumers wanted. Apple then begins to fill in the circle that Jobs drew, adding more and more products and services to the ecosystem, placing the consumer in the center of all of this. Jobs also pushed hard to deliver the Apple experience from a retail point of view, as he now understood what the Apple brand was really about for the consumers. Steve Jobs hadn't just created several revolutionary products. He managed a company with the brightest and most creative people, where they were able to focus on the right things to deliver the most innovative ideas in the world. He turned Apple into the biggest leader in innovation, which was a snowball that kept rolling even after his death.
Tim Cook and Steve Jobs are both very different, but they achieved outstanding levels of success both personally and for the company. There are a couple of differences between them though, starting from how they manage the company, their product development and innovation, and investor relationships. When it comes to management styles, Steve Jobs was known to be more passionate, unpredictable, and most importantly, a perfectionist. This, in my opinion, also was the root of his flaws, which was that he could tend to be aggressive and an over-perfectionist with his employees. He was also not such a good communicator with his employees, and it is said that he caused fear within the firm because of how he dealt with conflict. On the other hand, Cook is still seeking for Apple's success, and he has done it very good, but he does it in a different manner. As an engineer with an MBA, he knows more of the theory of leading a team and a company as large as Apple, although I doubt that his successes can be attributed to business school. He fosters an environment in which people are very open and communicative, and therefore creating a more professional yet comforting environment for the company. When it comes to product development and innovation, Steve Jobs was the genius behind the Mac, the iPod, iTunes, iPhone, App Store, and the iPad. These are still some of the core products of Apple's portfolio. He valued innovation greatly, and his successes as the CEO and founder of Apple can be greatly attributed to that. Tim Cook, on the other hand, had introduced improved versions of the iPad, iPad Mini, and iPad Retina display, and the Apple Watch. He also introduced Apple Music later on as a response to Spotify's growth, which has been a great success ever since for Apple. Finally, investor relations. During Jobs' time as CEO of Apple, the company never paid any dividends to the investors. This could be for a couple of reasons, including that the company was still growing. Nevertheless, by the late 2010s, Apple was already one of the largest companies in the world, and with its huge cash reserves, they could have afforded a dividend to its shareholders. On the other hand, Tim Cook was responsible for Apple's first cash dividend in 2012. He most probably likes to reinvest in the company like Steve Jobs, but it seems like he values his relationship with the investors much more.
Apple really grows its business internationally, especially in Asia, enormously over the years. So it has made its a strategy to embrace the market because of the growing purchase power of the Asian consumers. It has opened stores in China, Singapore, India, creating a complete customer experience. So Chinese consumers loved Apple when it first entered the market. It's an amazing success story there. Apple came at the right time at around 2010, 2011, when the Chinese smartphone market really took off and grew rapidly. Apple made Chinese commercial tailor designed for the market, and Tim Cook even mentioned that many products are specifically designed for Chinese audience. If you look at the gold iPhone, which Apple introduced a few years ago, it was specifically targeting at Chinese consumers. So in 2015, it has reached 25% market share there, which account for half of the global growth. And the iStores, for instance, in China bring more revenue than in the United States. So it's not just a additional revenue stream, but it's really the battle of the future. The real problem came when you enter the phase two in this story, when the highly innovative rivalries all trying to take a bite of the market share. So local competitors very strong, such as Huawei, Xiaomi, Vivo, Oppo. They are lower in price, but with very good quality. Samsung also does extremely well in Asia. Lenovo in the computer space also is very strong. So you have a whole range of competitors to compete with Apple. At the same time, because of the trade war with United States recent years, there's really been a backlash of foreign products, especially coming from the United States. So Chinese consumers starting to buy more national products, their local phones, which are equally good. So Apple definitely has a big challenge in the Asian market coming forward.